Welcome to the Legacy Years podcast. I'm Christy Osborne with Fairway Home Mortgage, and today we're talking about something every family is going to face at some point, which is grief. My guest today is not joining us as a counselor or clinical expert, but as someone who's walked through the heartbreaking loss of her husband and found the courage to keep living, healing, and helping others along the way. Grief can feel lonely, confusing, and impossible to explain, especially for someone who has become a widow. My hope is that today's conversation offers some comfort, understanding, maybe even a little hope for someone who's walking through loss, or you're loving someone who's also walking through loss. Welcome to the Legacy Years, Maureen. I am so glad that you're here today. We've had quite a journey to get to this point, so I'm glad we're finally scheduled and together, and welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Christy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I like to start by asking my guests to just tell my audience a little bit about themselves. So why don't you kind of start there?
Absolutely. So my name is Maureen Jirikowic, and I'm a widow. I'm an entrepreneurial, I'm a speaker, and I'm the founder of Miracles of Beauty.
I wanted to ask if you could just tell folks a little bit about y'all's life together, and let's kind of start there.
Absolutely. So I met my husband, Peter, about 16 years ago, and we were both living in Wisconsin. We had a 4.5-hour long distance relationship. We met in August and got married in the following April. This was a second marriage for both of us. And when I met him, he had, he still has 3 sons that are alive and well. And his youngest at the time was in 8th grade, and I had a 10-year-old son. And I remember sharing with him, I said, as soon as my son turns 18, we are out of the Midwest. We were done with the cold. I was done with the cold weather. And so my son chose UNT. And long story short is basically we got married within the first 8 months of knowing each other. When you know. And 3 of us moved to Texas. And that was in 2018. In 2021, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
He was having some stomach issues, and he was like, I think we need to go to urgent care. Well, we thought it was a gallbladder issue. We didn't think this was anything big. And then he got that life-threatening diagnosis. And so through the journey of 2021 to 2023, we did a variety of Western medicine as well as a lot of holistic medicine. And unfortunately, he went to be with the Lord in October of 2023. So that was our journey through that season.
Yeah. When you think back really to the early days after his passing, what do you remember most about that season?
Yes, that's such a great question. So I am in year 3. So I've gone through 2 full years and a half years. And I think for a widow, especially when a husband dies young, the first year was really about numbness, questioning, wondering. Your brain is still processing the fact that your spouse is gone. I mean, it's a tough year. There was a lot of times that I can't really remember a lot of the activities or things that I even did. Sometimes it was just being numb, sitting in a chair, but it's important to process those feelings and let yourself grieve in those feelings, because I know everyone has heard of the stages of death. And the first year is really a lot. For me, it was a lot of numbness, a lot of just trying to figure out what happened. The second year was really the grieving year. And when I say the grieving year was really more about the sadness really came in. It was now a reality of what happened. And so that's a little bit about my journey. Now, year 3, I'm more awake. I'm more looking at the possibility of what does life look like now that it's so different without my spouse.
Right. Was there anything about grief that surprised you?
Yes. The surprising factor of grief was looking differently at myself and realizing who I was versus who I was with my husband. And so there was a whole identity shift in how I looked at things, in processing, like, what is it that I want to do at this point in my life? I think marriage you're making decisions jointly, and now all the decisions were up to me. And so that was an aha moment. And while it's been difficult, it's been rewarding at the same time to really get to know, who am I at this stage?
I find that a lot with my clients who are older, who've lost their husbands. It's typically when they've lost a husband versus when they've lost their wife, that decision making alone is one of the more difficult things for them. And there are a lot of these folks are a lot, older. So it's been a lifetime of someone making decisions or making decisions together that they're not used to.
Yes.
So it's interesting that as a younger widow, you also felt that burden, because it's the same for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. People say things like, we think of cliche things that people say, like, time will heal all wounds. Were there things that people said that you were like, oh, I just wish people would stop saying that to me?
What I've realized is, yes, there are all those cliche things, and, he's in a better place now, he's not suffering, all those things, and all those things are true. But I think the biggest thing is just, understanding that people do mean well. The best resources that I find are other widows who really get it. They
Yeah.
really understand, like, this process isn't easy. And I think it's just understanding that people just don't know what to say, and they don't know how to say it. I think that the one thing that I do want to share is, like, to say my husband's name. His name was Pete. And I incorporate his name into conversations with people that we were close to, because I feel like sometimes it's very awkward. I find that people don't want to say anything. They just want to see, like, hey, you're moving on. Like, but to me, I want to always keep him in my heart, and I want people to remember him. And
Yeah.
so I will bring up his name, and sometimes the conversation just is dead. It's like nobody says anything. It's like, oh my gosh, I just made the best banana bread. My husband was a fabulous cook and baker, and that was never me. And I'm learning from some of his recipes, and I want people to know that was him. That's really not,
Yeah.
so I think bringing up his name, and I think the best advice that I would have is talk about the spouse that has left, that is gone, and bring up his name. And, if people have a fond memory, like, I remember your husband did this and it was so funny, or it was this, because to us, to a widow, that's so comforting. It's
Okay.
so kind to bring him
Yeah.
up. Instead, people think it's just going to make us cry. But for me, I'm at a point where I'm in the acceptance. This is my new life. But I never want to forget my husband. I never want his legacy to be gone.
And if you cry, that's okay too.
Yes. Crying is a release, and it's
Yeah.
actually extremely healthy. And I still do cry. There are times that I cry still and think, what? How can this be?
I think it's hard because people do feel awkward, and they don't want to say, people are kind-hearted. They don't want to say the wrong thing. So instead they say nothing, and that can also be the wrong thing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned this, and I think I felt this too when I lost a parent, that grief comes in waves. And that is true. Things can hit you kind of out of the blue. Were there certain moments that you felt were harder than others? I know holidays are always a hard time. It's like the first, whatever without your loved one.
Yes. For this, just this past Memorial Day, my parents were here, and my parents are in their mid 80s. So I'm grateful that they're around. And then I have a brother and sister-in-law that live in McKinney. And then we were together with another couple friend. I was the only one there without a spouse. And my husband served in the Marines. And so it was a bittersweet, because the one thing that always makes me cry is parades and people that serve, because I have such a deep respect for honoring our country that way and for giving of their time so graciously, because I'm like 4 years, even 4 years to me, I'm like, that's a long time to serve. And so Memorial Day weekend, I let myself, there was a day, it was a Sunday, and we were just around family, and I just was quiet. I wasn't crying, but I just was quiet and absorbing taking in that I truly missed my husband.
Yeah.
So the waves of grief, yeah, I think they'll be up and down and all around. And, obviously the anniversary day is always, it typically is a tough day. The first year, I actually I wanted to distract myself and I went out to dinner and was with friends. And I purposely did that because I thought, I don't want to, this is not where I don't want to sit home and grieve. I've been
Yeah.
grieving for a year. So
Right.
diverted my activity on that day, but I have honored my grief. And if I need to take a nap because I'm just feeling bad, or if I need to just cry and let it out, I have honored that because I know that if you do not grieve, it'll catch up with you at some point. The bottled feelings will eventually come out in another way. And so I've been really careful. And, you want to rush it. Everybody wants to rush it because I remember thinking, just don't want to feel this way anymore. This heavy, heavy feeling of, just going to the grocery store was an effort I had to gear up for it. I couldn't just, I'm a goer and a doer. And it was like, I can get all these things done. And it was just, it took everything in me to get to the store. And that was it. And that was it. That was all I could do in that day.
Yeah.
And I was, and I had people around me that said, if that's all you do, then do it and don't do anything else.
And don't feel bad about it. Just let
Right.
it take its course. It's interesting to me because haven't known you that long, but I feel like that's your personality. You are a go-getter. You are vivacious. You are getting a lot done.
Yes.
So you feel like that's come back full circle for you?
And I will say that I believe it's because I did the process. I didn't rush the process. I wanted to rush the process, but my body just said, you can't. You can't go. You can't keep doing that kind of pace. And there was even a time, I would say about 6 months ago, that I was really pushing. And I've come to such a place of, it's a beautiful place to be for anyone, really, whether you're grieving or not, but a place of surrender. And I let things happen versus chase. And if things don't turn out, if things don't happen, I'm no longer upset about it. I just think wasn't meant to be. Next. And it just, so my life has totally changed that way, where before I was thinking, you have to do this much per day of this. And especially being an entrepreneurial and being a widow, there's more stress and more pressure of just sitting.
Right.
But I've learned that, you know what? I mean, you can be just as productive with the right activity versus busyness.
Yeah. I feel like even as a society, we do that, grieving or not, that we are a busy society and that we need that time. We need that downtime. We need that, our thought time. Those things are important.
For sure.
So, yeah, definitely a key. So you kind of talked about the process, the year, the second year, into the third year. When did you really feel like, okay, I can breathe again?
It's been a constant, it's still waves. So there are days that it's still a little bit on the other side. And then there's days that it's up. So, I mean, I really think going into year 3, because I really think year 1 was numbness. Year 2 was the true grieving, the crying a lot. There's still a little bit of that paralyzed feeling of what do I do? How do I process this? How do I go about my life? And year 3, I think, was really more of the opening up of, okay, I'm ready to give and I'm also ready to receive.
Nice. And we've said this, but I do think that people listening need to realize everybody's journey is going to be different. This is Maureen's journey, and we hope that it gives you some hope, but the process is going to be not the same for everybody. So don't feel bad if you're still grieving and you're in year 3 to say that, or that if your grief process was faster. It's not linear.
Exactly. That's such a great point, Christy. And, I tracked a lot of widows, single women who are going through either a divorce or have become a widow. And you're absolutely right. There's no right or wrong way to get through to the other side with with
Yeah.
widowhood, and it really never goes away. The grieving never really truly goes away. Could be, I've met widows who 15 years, they've been a widow for 15 years. And I just had somebody who told me her story, and her kids were young when her husband passed away. And it's embracing his memory through her kids, and the
Yeah.
tears started flowing. And I've said, it's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny that you say that, how you attract widows, because I was going to ask you what role you felt like, community and faith and the people around you, what role did they play in this process for you?
It's been interesting. It's been seasons of people who have just shown up at the right time. It's absolutely God's grace to me, honestly. I live in a house, and my husband, Pete, was a handyman. So I never had to worry about house issues or anything like that because I always had him here. And I have two neighbors on each side of me. The neighbor on this side cuts the grass. Not
Oh,
because I've asked him to. He genuinely just wants to serve. And I mean, I give him gift cards, and
yeah.
I'm grateful to him. And I told him, please do not ever feel like you have to. I mean, I have a lawnmower. I could hire somebody, but just he said he likes to do it, and it's a great service to me. And so I'm truly grateful. I have a guy that lives on this side of me, and he is a handyman, and he is so good. He does, if there's any little thing that I have a question about, like changing the furnace filter, he's like, let me just come over and do it. I mean,
No.
he's just always there for me. So I feel like the right people show up at the right time. And I did have a dear friend that I processed a lot of things through at that season, in the beginning seasons. And I remember her telling me, she kept on telling me, she kept on reiterating the fact of, she said, 6 months from now, things are going to look totally different than they do right now. And I was just like, felt like you were on like the slow train, or you were walking in slow motion, because it just seemed like time just was not, like the changes were not happening. And I wanted the changes to happen much faster, and they just weren't. And she kept telling me that. She said, things are going to explode. Things are going to happen. And I mean, so she was really my cheerleader. And if something would happen that I didn't understand, sometimes I would call her. A lot of times I would pray. I did ask God for a lot of direction during those seasons too. And sometimes it came through people, and sometimes it came directly from him.
Beautiful. I just got back from a trip to Boston, and we did a schooner tour or ride. It was a great day for the wind, and we were headed out, and the sails were, billowing, and we were, man, we were just booking it. And they were going to make a turn. So they adjusted the sails, and, it felt like we came to a screeching halt. We were just kind of drifting. And a gentleman next to me said to one of the sailors, wow, we just got dead in the water, didn't we? And the sailor said, we're actually going the same speed. It feels different to you because the wind is not blowing in your face right now. And I was like, that is crazy to think about. So you felt like, you were going this slow, slogging, mired field walk, and where everything was going at the same speed around you.
Yes. And that's a great parallel that I've actually used, Christy, is what it's like to be a widow is you're standing here and the world is going around you like this, and you are just standing there and you can't move.
Yeah.
That is an example that I've used to many people who
Yeah.
are at the beginning stages of.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Um, so, you've talked to a lot of people, and as you said, you kind of associate with a number of widows, and that's been a natural thing for you. What do you think that people do need to hear the most? And what's the most helpful? Like if you know someone who's going through a grieving process, what is the most helpful thing?
I think the most helpful thing is accept the invitations that people give you, because life looks different. If you had friends with your husband and you were doing couple things, I've heard from several widows where they're no longer invited.
Yeah.
But there's other invitations that are coming to you. And you might think, gosh, I don't really know if I want to go to that restaurant, or I don't know if I want to do that. Take a chance and go, because there may be a new friend or something that comes out of that. Because I think you're changing up who you are in a sense, where you're changing up, like, this is the new you. You no longer are going to church with your husband. You're going by yourself, and to help get yourself comfortable is accepting those invitations and at least exploring them. You never have to go again if you don't like the situation or you didn't like that place or whatever, but it's a part of your growth. And if you isolate yourself, that can be very damaging to you, to helping you grow and get out of that circle of
Yeah.
just feeling that one way.
I can see that. It's what we tell our children. Try
Yes.
something. Just try it.
Yes.
We
Exactly.
encourage that.
Yes.
It's good advice.
Yeah.
Are there some things that you felt like that you were feeling, but that you just didn't want to say out loud?
Yes. I mean, I felt like nobody understands this. The people within my family, like, they really don't understand what I go through, all the decisions I have to make. So a little bit of self-pity, I would say.
Uh-huh.
Like, just,
Yeah.
but those were feelings that I did keep to myself, and I just thought, just power it through, take the breaks that you need, and ask for help when you need it. But yeah, I just felt like some people just expected, like, after the funeral and everything was done, like, all right, put on your big girl boots and get up and keep going, where they didn't understand all the dips and the valleys that were happening to have to make decisions that I never had to make alone before.
It's crazy to me too that so many people feel like that they can have an opinion, or that they should give you their opinion. I have an acquaintance. She's someone that I know through work, and she lost her husband, and she's been very vocal on Facebook, and it's her processing. This is part of her journey. And somebody must have said something to her, because she posted something that was basically like, listen, this is for me. If you don't like it, move on. I'm like thinking to myself, did someone say something? That's just, gosh, that's crazy to me. So let people process the way that they want to process.
Yes.
We
And
don't
I
need to
think
have an opinion about everything.
correct. And I think too, going through the process of grief, and especially with a spouse, is after you've gone through such an intense pain, um, I feel like what happens with widows is we get a little clear on what we're going to tolerate and what we're not. And that, I think that really, that decision making really rises, where it's like, okay, if there's drama here, I'm out. I can't deal with this.
Don't
You
need
know,
it.
just, it's just, it's a higher level of, I feel like what happens is, at least for me, is a higher level of discernment and wisdom in relationships. And, it's harder for us to, when somebody says that they have like a little problem and they exemplify it, and like, okay, I cannot deal with this. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I
I'm
think we also
sorry.
do that with age as well.
Yes. Yeah.
What would you say to someone, and maybe you've already expressed it, maybe we've already answered this, but what would you say to someone who's newly widowed, and they're wondering how they're going to move forward? What
Yeah.
would be something that you could say to someone in that
In that,
stage?
yes. Honor your feelings when you need to honor them. If you need to cry, shout, scream, whatever it is, bang your hand. I mean, I remember my neighbor said, "Do you need to come over and throw some dishes?" I mean, and it was so funny. I mean, she was genuinely being a good friend. And my situation with my husband having a terminal illness, I didn't really go through anger where other
Yeah.
people would have, and that would have been helpful for them. So the invitation was very sweet. But I would definitely say, this was given to me, and I want to pass this on, is, again, just take those invitations. If somebody says they want to come over and visit, and you're okay with having company at that time,
Yeah.
let them come over and visit. Somebody says, let's go out to lunch. I just want to take you out to lunch. Do it. take some chances and challenge yourself to take those, because grief and depression, when you're going through it in the beginning, it would be very easy to just stay in bed and put the covers over your head and never want to acknowledge it. And luckily, I have a little Shih Tzu dog. And so, he's like this at me. So there wasn't time for just staying in bed all day. But I can see there were times when I just thought, I just don't even want to get out of bed today. So, make sure that you have a circle, make sure you have some entrusted people that you have. Go to grief counseling if that is something that you think would serve you. Be around other people. I made the mistake. This was a mistake for me. It may not be for others, but I went 1 month after my husband died, and it was not for me. And it was just too soon for me. And they had everybody kind of say how long they've been a widow. And I mean, and then I was listening to everybody else's story. I became a widow, and it was like, we do not need to be around right now people who are super sad. So that part wasn't for me. But to have friends and to have a circle of people that you can call and say, I'm feeling lonely. Have that trusted person that you can go to and, get out of your environment and shake it up, because once you're out of your environment, it helps. The other thing that helps too is just really, if you love to serve or volunteer, when you're giving to someone else, your situation, it takes the focus off you and it puts it on other people. And it's just it helps with the grieving as well.
Yeah. I've read something recently that said it's hard to be grateful and anxious at the same time.
Yes.
And serving others makes you realize the things that you're grateful for. So I could see that would be something that would be effective. Okay, this may be a hard one, but what do you feel grief has taught you about love?
What has grief taught me about love? It has taught me just how deep my relationship and how much I loved my husband. And just looking back at, marriage is never for the faint at heart. And, looking back, I look at all the positive things that he was and that he did. And just knowing that, it was an honor to be his wife for the amount of time that we had together.
Beautifully said. Is there anything that you wish that people understood more about widowhood?
I think just valuing, understanding that this is such a different season for them, and to be understanding, and to also be, this is a big one. Widow doesn't know what she needs, or he. They don't know. And so for me, my husband cooked and baked. I didn't do any of those things. I mean, I did, but not anything elaborate like he did. And so don't ask them, can I bring you a meal? Say, I would love to bring you a meal. Is Tuesday or Thursday better for you? I would love to come and visit. And if she can't, if she's not in the emotional space that she can accept that, she will say no. But we're not in a position where somebody says, what can I do for you? We don't know.
Right.
We don't know what the answer is. Did I need my grass cut? Do I need weeds pulled? Do I need my furnace filter done? Yeah, but I'm not going to come out and say, I cannot process the day-to-day stuff because I'm so deep in the grief. So just offer. Those things are such a huge help. I mean, everybody has to eat. And that's the worst of, when you're used to eating with a spouse, a lot of women will stop eating because there's no one there to eat with. And who wants to cook for one person? All these things go through a widow's mind that other people don't see. They just think, okay,
I heard this story. I don't even remember where I heard this story, but this was a gentleman talking about his dad and his dad's impact on his life and his dad's service to others. And he remembers that they had a neighbor who lost her husband and they had little kids. Good grief. This story gets me all up in my works. And he said his dad went over there and polished all of the children's shoes, didn't ask, just went and did it before the funeral. And he was like, and this was back earlier in obviously 40s, 50s when there were shoes that were polished, but he said he remembers that so well because, again, she didn't know what she needed. She wasn't thinking about her children's shoes or how they looked or anything like that. So that is a story that stuck with me.
Love that story. That is a beautiful story.
It really is beautiful. One of those that gets you. So we've talked about so many things today, but I always like to ask everybody that's on the show, is there one thing that you would, that we didn't cover that you would want to leave people with today?
The only other thing is I think some people want to give advice to widows, and we don't need that either. No, I mean, some people were like, hey, gosh, what are you going to do with your house? And it's like, where am I going to? I mean, yeah. I mean, what are you going to do with your house? What are you going to do? And this is a story. So my grandmother became a widow. She lost her husband when he was in his 40s.
Wow.
She had 2 kids, my dad and his brother, and they were 12, 8 at the time. And they told her to sell her car and sell her house. And she was like, what? Like she would have lost her kids, right? I mean, because she was a stay-at-home mom. Her husband worked and he had a massive heart attack and died. And there was a neighbor that ended up getting her a job. She never listened to that advice. She never listened. This was like way back when. My dad is 85. So you can think how many years ago that was.
Right.
And she never did it. And she never remarried, but she supported those 2 kids, stayed in the same home, and always had a car to drive and had an 8th grade education. So widows are tough women, tough men. They will survive. It's going to take some time for them to get to where they need to be, but time is on their side. I mean, they will process and they will figure it out. So just be careful not to say, well, you shouldn't date within the first year, or you shouldn't do this, or you should do this. Come in with an open heart, a listening ear. And, you can ask questions, but be careful to give advice because the relationship could be severed if you think that you know what the answers are for that individual person.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. You've shared so much with us today. And thank you for being open and vulnerable and sharing your story with everyone. I know that's probably not an easy thing to do. And I appreciate that you were willing to come on here and do that.
Thank you so much for having me, Christy. I did create a podcast and it was called Widowhood. And I was doing it for a little bit and then I just kind of let it go and I haven't been. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here because I do want to be a positive person that widows see my journey and get some hope, some fresh ideas. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on here.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.